welcome everybody to Chilton High School and our English Center, the orientation that we put together for our parents for incoming ninth graders. We're looking very forward to going through the registration and scheduling process with your sons and daughters, and obviously looking very forward to having them in our high school next fall. The purpose of our presentation tonight is just give you a little overview of the scheduling, bell schedule that we have here, which is a block schedule, give you a little orientation into how that works and how that might impact your sons and daughters' course choices. We want to give you an introduction into what's required of students, not only in the freshman year, but then all throughout 4 years of high school. And we want to talk a little bit about career pathways that some of you may have already been involved in Tiger Talks with your 8th grade son or daughter with Mr. Graveland and Mr. Bowman. So we want to give you a little orientation on that, talk a little about post-secondary education, what's needed to prepare to get into a college or a 2-year campus or a 4-year baccalaureate university. So we hope you enjoy the session. Our parents over the years have found it very meaningful. One thing I like to tell you, I want to keep it informal. So if you've got a question, rather than sitting with it, waiting to the end when I say, do you have any questions, and you forgot what it is by then, just ask away. Raise your hand and try to answer your questions as we go through. Okay? With me is our school counselor, Mr. Grable. Mr. Grable will be involved in, Phil Grable, I should say, he will be involved in helping your sons and daughters through this process as well. So, without any further ado, I'd like to just go over the mission statement of Chilton High School with you. I won't read the whole thing, you can do that, but I do want to focus on 3 words: knowledge, enthusiasm, and compassion. These are 3, foci, if you will, or emphasis that we have at Chilton High School in terms of the development of your sons and daughters, all students at Chilton High School. We want them to develop a substantial knowledge base and become lifelong learners. That's critical in the 21st century. The jobs that they'll be getting 7 to 10, 15 years from now haven't even been created yet. That's what the research is telling us. So we need to develop them to have a solid knowledge base to be lifelong learners. We want them to be enthusiastic about life and lifelong learning. And finally, we want them to build compassion for themselves, but also compassion for those with whom they intersect in this global environment that we live in now. It's not just Chilton, Wisconsin, or just northeastern Wisconsin or Wisconsin. We live in a global community, and the jobs that your sons and daughters will be getting will most likely be connected to other countries and around the globe in some fashion. So that's our mission. We think it's important that we have a triangle of people working together to develop the best success we can for your son or daughter. That's obviously you. Your support is extremely valuable to that process. They may tell you it's not. They may tell you stay home, I don't want you at school, just stay away. I know my own daughters, one of the daughters that I had when she was in the North Hall, she expected me to be somewhere else in the building, and if she was in the South Hall, she expected me to be somewhere else in the building. But even though they tell you they don't want you around, be around. That's what makes a successful student. Working with our teachers, it's important that you work with teachers, communicate with them your concerns, let them know your questions. Work closely with the teachers through email, through staying on PowerParent, anything you can do. Our teachers want to talk to you, they want to keep you involved, and communication is a two-way street. So we hope that we expect them to do their part communicating with you. We hope that you will do your part communicating with us, because we need your communication. And then finally, the student. Obviously, the student is the person that has to do the dirty work to get his or her education accomplished. We will facilitate that. We will do whatever we can to make sure that they have the best opportunities to learn. But inevitably, they are responsible for doing the work and having the motivation, getting to school, and doing the best that they can. How many of you have had sons or daughters go through the high school with block schedule? Okay, so we've got probably a third of you. So I'll just explain that. The question comes up, what is a block schedule? The most important thing to know is that it's just a schedule. It's just a schedule. High schools schedule in many different ways. 7-period days, what we used to have 10 years ago. There's 8-period days, there's 4-period days, there's modified block schedules where there's a 6-day rotation, and day 1 and day 3 and day 5 and day 7, every other 6th day will be one schedule, and then the alternating days will be another. So it's just a way to organize the school day. And it organizes into fewer but longer class periods. Each class period at the high school is 90 minutes long, with the exception of skinnies, which I'll talk about in a moment. Those are half blocks, 45 minutes long. The model we use is a 4x4 block. We have 4 blocks per day, or in my day, 4 periods per day. And we have 4 terms per year. In my day, would have been quarters, 4 quarters, first quarter, second quarter, and so forth. We still divide the year into 2 semesters. Each of those semesters has 2 terms in it, or quarters. And finally, each day, as I said, consists of 4 instructional periods, 90 minutes in length. Question? Okay. Here's the biggest difference. And I'm assuming that we all went to high school in a traditional schedule, so forgive me if I'm in error. But in my day, I went to English every day for 180 days and got a credit. 45 to 50-minute classes. In the block schedule, kids go for 90 minutes or 2 terms, and they get that 1 credit course completed in a semester. Okay? Half credit classes, which I would have completed if I had class, first semester or second semester, they're getting them done in just 1 term for half credit. Now, skinnies, on the other hand, meet all year long for 1 credit. All year long for 1 credit. And I'll go into that a little bit more. You'll see it a little more clearly later on. So let's just take a look at it for those of you who are visual learners. Here's the 2 semesters, semester 1, semester 2. Here's the 4 quarters, or terms as we call them. Here's our blocks or periods. And you can see how the courses line up. So 4 across and 4 down, the 4x4 block. Our goals for moving to the block schedule were as follows: to reduce class sizes, which we were able to accomplish and still are accomplishing in many respects. With budget cuts, we have had to increase some class sizes in certain areas, FIED being one of them. And we've had to increase some class sizes because of an increase in elective opportunities for students. The video that you saw as you were entering this evening was a promo for our technology or vocational arts program, which includes agricultural studies, as well as shop, power studies, automotive and woods, and manufacturing and welding, those kind of courses. Mrs. Thielman was going to be here tonight to talk about that, but something came up, so at the 11th hour she asked if she could run that promo before we came here. So the students put that together last semester, or last spring. But because we've increased elective opportunities, we have more kids taking more classes, and that's increasing class sizes in some departments as well. It minimizes course conflict. What is a course conflict? I want to take art, and I want to take foods. And they end up meeting at the same time. I got to make a choice. That's a conflict. They don't meet any other time when I can take them. So I have to make a choice. The block schedule minimizes that. We're able to we're not 100%, no schedule will ever be 100%, but we have been in the 80% range. 80% of our kids get 100% of the courses that they registered for. So that's pretty good, very good. When I talk to my colleagues around the conference, it's much lower than that. So it minimizes course conflict. It gives students more time to spend on less stuff. For my oldest daughter, the block schedule worked beautifully. She had to work hard at her efforts in schooling. She was a good student. She got good grades, but she had to work very, very hard to get those grades. And when she came from the middle school to the high school and only had to deal with 2 heavy hitters, maybe math and science, and 2 electives, like maybe FIED and foods, she had 2 classes of potential high rigor and high volume of homework and so forth, and 2 classes of potential low rigor and less homework. She was able to spend more time on those heavy hitters, and it helped a lot. So more time to spend on less stuff. And frankly, it provides a college-like atmosphere for our high school. And we feel really good and continue to feel really good that we've met all those goals by moving to the block schedule. Skinnies for music. After we were in the block schedule for a few years, we began to notice that some of our music kids were dropping off as juniors and seniors. And we noticed our band and our choir was heavy in freshman and sophomore and lagged in the junior and senior area. The reason for that during our study in the 2008-2009 year was that parents and students perceived 8 credits of a single music course over 4 years. They perceived that as too much. Band and choir used to meet for a full block all year long. That's 2 credits a year, so 2 times 4 equals 8. And parents and students felt that that was too much. Some students had difficulty keeping band and choir in their schedule along with other electives because that was taking up a bulk, a big chunk of their day. And so, as I said, participation in band and choir was down, especially in the 11th and 12th grade. So the board approved, we went and researched this, we looked at other high schools in the area that were using the block schedule and who were running Skinnies. Kiel was the closest one we looked at, also Little Chute, and we looked at Reedsville. And the use of Skinnies seemed to be a good idea for help addressing this problem. That way a student could have band all year or choir all year, but for only 1 credit, because they were only meeting for half a block. Does that make sense? We can't run band first semester and choir second semester in a full 90-minute block. You don't want a band that just exists for 1 semester. What happens to the spring concert? What happens to the pep band during the winter time? What happens to the Father's Day parade? So we wanted to make sure that our music courses ran all year. Well, we're doing them in a skinny format now. And Skinnies have worked very well for most students during the past 3 school years. And I've already covered some of this. A Skinny allows band and choir to run all year. A designated 90-minute block is divided into half, and 2 45-minute courses are scheduled. Those are the Skinnies. And the result is 1 credit of band and choir that runs all year. This has also helped because we've been able to bring about 2 new music classes at the high school, stage band being one and concert chorale being the other. Again, for you visual learners, here's the block schedule with Skinny. Semester 1, semester 2, the 4 terms or quarters, the 4 periods, but notice that block 3 is divided into 3A and 3B. So 90-minute block, 90-minute block, 90-minute block, 2 45-minute blocks. So there's a course, a course, a course, a course, and so forth. Here's the Skinny. This course, 90 minutes at a half credit, 90 minutes at a half credit, so same thing here. This course runs all year, quarter credit for 45 minutes, quarter credit for 45 minutes, and so forth. Here's how it looks like for a real student. This is a 9th grade student with band as a Skinny. Has art, physical, this is first semester, has art, physical science, symphonic band all year, goes to an early U.S. history class all year, has 9th grade PE in Woods. Second semester, leadership and foods, English 9, here's that band, and here's that history, and here's the algebra 2. So in actuality, we're a 4x4 block, but for music students, or some students, other students as well, they've got 5 periods per day. Again, if you have any questions, jump in. Here's a 9th grade student we're getting away from Skinnies for a moment here. Here's how a block schedule looks for a regular 9th grade student with no music course. Again, you can see drawing and painting, potentially less rigor, physical science, potentially higher rigor, early U.S. history, potentially higher rigor, 9th grade PE and Woods, potentially lower rigor. What I mean by rigor is that the classes aren't rigorous, it's just that there's less, they're doing stuff in school rather than having a lot of homework. And then, so that's 2 heavy hitters, if you will, the physical science and early U.S. history first semester. The heavy hitter second semester is English 9 and Algebra 2. And then these courses would be elective type courses that would have more, less homework, potentially. Yes?
So now, in this one, the U.S. history is 90 minutes, and then with the Skinny, it's only 45?
Correct. 90 minutes for a semester would be the regular one. The Skinny would be 45 minutes all year long. So it ends up being the same time. Good question. One of the things the Skinnies has also done for many kids, and again, we can't guarantee this at 100%, but students have been able to now take band and choir at a higher percentage than they ever were before. It's very difficult for a student to be in both band or choir. It still is in some respect today. If your child's thinking about doing both band and choir, we encourage them to register for that. There is the potential for some conflicts, but we also have a way to work around that. For instance, we had some kids this year who wanted to take band and choir, and the band that they chose and the choir that they chose were scheduled at the same time. We didn't want them to have to make a choice. So Mrs. P. and Mr. Gillis worked it out that those kids would go to choir Monday, Wednesday, every other Friday, and band Tuesday, Thursday, and every other Friday. When it came to concert time, If the band was to have a concert, those kids would stay with the band for 3 or 4 days at the end for dress rehearsals. So it worked out pretty well. But here's a kid, a student who can take band and choir. So they got early history, physical science, mixed chorus all year, symphonic band all year, and then 9th grade PE in Woods. Second semester, same thing with the music, but the other classes are over here. So that's how it will look. You start here. You want me to take this? Go. You want me to take this? Or do you want me? Okay. These are the graduation requirements. So after 4 years of high school, to be eligible for a diploma, students have to earn a credit and a half of physical education, a half credit of personal leadership, a half credit of healthful living, that's the sophomore year, 4 credits, you're going to take English every year, language arts, 4 credits of social studies, they'll take a social studies course every year, 2 credits of science, 2 credits of math, and then 13 and a half credits of electives. Those are the graduation requirements. Most kids graduate 30, 31 credits. They're taking a heck of a lot more math and science than what we are required. I talked about this a little bit with conflict, choices and challenges. More opportunity to take more courses, that's more elective opportunity that the block schedule provides, does make more decisions to make. So students have more elective opportunities over 4 years, much better than they did, but that does give us some choices to make from time to time. In the 9th grade, students will only have room to take 3 credits of electives. That's the same for the 10th grade. The 9th and 10th grade, we have a lot of requirements for our students in English, social studies, math, and science. And then they have Phi-Ed that's required, and then they have the personal leadership at the sophomore year that's required, and the healthful living at the sophomore year that's required. So there's only opportunity for 3 credits of electives at the 9th and 10th grade level. But look what happens at the 11th grade level. This is where they're not required to take math or science. They can. If they do, that's considered an elective. Once you've met your requirement, I've taken my 2 credits of math. If I take more math, that starts to satisfy my electives. 11th grade students will have 5.5 credits of elective choices, and in 12th grade, 6 credits. So, as your students think about courses that they want to take next year, they're going to have English, math, social studies, science, Phi-Ed, and personal living. That's 6 classes that are already governed for them, if you will. And they're going to go, I don't have any room for my electives. And one may be a foreign language. Don't worry about it. Delay it. We recommend that you delay it because there's going to be more than enough time the junior and senior year to get those in. So just remember that. Don't try to cram things in at freshman and sophomore year. That's when they're going to be required course heavy. Junior and senior year, they'll be elective heavy, their choice. Yes?
Do you know, like how soon do you know when the Cascade foreign language classes are available? Like when you know when what block?
Okay. The question is, when will I know when Cascade, and we'll talk about that in a moment, that's distance education. We have some courses, unique courses like German or careers in criminal justice, communication with the deaf. We have some specialty courses that we get over distance education. And the question was, when will I know when they meet? I know now. Okay? And there's very little control that I have over that. And I think I know where you're going with this, possibly with the German and the conflict of music. Yeah. We get German from Xavier High School. They do a couple of weird things. They run German 2 first semester and German 1 second semester. I don't know why they do that, but they do. And the other thing is Mr. Grable is a German 1 or German 2 that tends to always fall 3rd block, which is what our music classes are. German 2? Okay. So, and I believe they're going to be scheduled the same for next year as well. Okay? And you raise an interesting point. Unlike what some schools do, many don't. But what some schools do and what colleges tend to do is they develop their timetable. In other words, when do the classes meet and who's teaching them? And then the kids figure out who am I going to take when and where and so forth, and they may get locked out of class and so forth. At Shelton High School, we collect the registration data, we dump that into a computer, and then the computer builds a schedule in such a way as to minimize that conflict. So our master timetable is different every year, with the exception of music, which has to go third block for a variety of reasons. So we take what the students tell us they want, and then we build the timetable around that, rather than saying, here students, here's the timetable, and I'll figure out a schedule that works for you. We think that makes more sense. Did I answer your question? So we're going to see what the registration trends are for Cascade, and then we'll decide which classes we're going to actually run and which classes we don't have enough enrollment to run and which classes conflict and so forth.
Is that always, the German always been at that time? Do you foresee that it might change?
It's since we've been offering German, that's when Lourdes Academy, I apologize, I said Xavier. That's when they've always ran it. Now we are looking at offering German 3 next year. It's going to be you'll see it if you get online and go to the Cascade course registration guide. German 3, I think, was going to be 4th block. So for students who have gotten through the first 2 levels, we should be able to do the 3rd level, I think, at a better time. Starting last year, we put everything online. So we're not handing manuals out to kids. It's all online. Just go to our webpage and then go to the CHS drop-down menu and go to registration courses, and it should be there. I don't know if it's there today. I just PDF'd all the documents this afternoon, sent them off to our webmaster, and knowing him, he'll probably have them on yet tonight, if not tomorrow. But Mr. Grable, you said you do have the big course guide, the main course prescription and registration guide is on the Guidance Council webpage, and you can get to that through the main webpage. So be like. But tonight's presentation, if you know some people that didn't make it, this slideshow is going to be on there. It's also being videotaped, so there'll be a video link, a YouTube link on there if you want to watch it that way. The letter that you got describing the timelines of registration and scheduling will be on there. Cascade guide, the registration guide, the worksheets that your students will be getting. So everything's on there. We're trying to make that as easy as we can. And we're saving paper. Okay, now Mr. Grable, sorry.
Okay. If you want to take the handout, last page of the handout, and look at the 8th grade registration sheet. Looks like this with a grid on the top. That'll help you follow along with the required courses for 9th grade students. So, like Dr. Shade mentioned, there are several requirements that are already determined for 9th grade, or for 8th grade students as they're registering for 9th grade. So you'll see in the squares on the grid many of those required courses that are listed up here. So we have English 9, 1 credit of that. Your recommended math course, and that will be communicated to students before registration time. Mrs. Schaefer will let every student know exactly which math course she would recommend that they register for. Early U.S. history, 1 credit of that. You see that on the grid. Physical science, 1 credit. Personal leadership, a half credit of that. 9th grade physical ed. And then 3 credits of electives, which you'll see there are 6 boxes that are blank. And that'll be where your student will enter their elective choices. Now, whether or not they decide to take semester-long elective courses like an art class or 1-term courses like the Woods or something like that, that will determine how many names of courses you have to put in those boxes. You would fill 2 boxes for a 1-credit course and only 1 box for a half-credit course.
If I can just interject, because of our we have an initiative to have all students be successful in all disciplines, in all curricular areas, but math especially. Everybody's seen in the news, math, science, literacy, those are the big heavy hitters in our nation today. We have decided that if the student is not ready for algebra or geometry or algebra 2 by the time they hit the high school, we want those students to take intro to algebra and algebra their freshman year so that we keep those skills building. 180 days for their freshman year, their math skills. So if your son or daughter did not take algebra and or geometry in middle school, and the math department recommends them from intro to algebra, please help them to remember that we want them to take intro to algebra and algebra. That way we can keep a good solid run at building their math skills.
The following slide has to do with planning for a four-year education. As students are making their plans for high school, some of you have already heard this speech within the Tiger Talk, and for those of you who haven't yet, for the 8th grade Tiger Talk, you will be hearing it in the next month or so. For students, it's never too early to start thinking about their education after high school and whether or not, just how much math, science, English, that type of thing they want to take. Many of the things are covered already by the high school requirements as far as English and social studies goes. But as far as math and science go, the high school only requires 2 credits. And in those cases, as you look above and also on your university course planning sheet, which again is within your handouts, most universities are recommending at least 3, maybe even 4 years of math and science. So knowing that type of information before you start already registering as a freshman can help you and your students start planning out exactly how much in the different areas students want to take in different classes. As far as electives go, universities are also looking for 4 additional credits from the areas that are listed below. Many people ask, there's often a misconception about foreign language and whether or not that's actually required. 2 years of the same foreign language, so Spanish 1 and 2 or German 1 and 2, are still only required by UW-Eau Claire and UW-Madison specifically. So any other university recommends 4 credits from any of those 4 areas, whether it be foreign language, fine arts, which would be any of our art courses, computer, business, technology, sciences, or any courses that are intended to develop career and college readiness. Yes?
But foreign language, is it a requirement in the last 2 years of high school, the junior, senior year for the college?
No, they can be any of the 4 years. So if your student wants to enroll in Spanish 1 or German 1 as early as 9th grade, they can do that. Some majors, it kind of depends what area specifically you're going into, and again, if you're planning on going on to like Madison or Eau Claire, they may require you to do a placement or competency test within that foreign language. So the only benefit may be if you only plan on taking 2 years of a foreign language to maybe waiting until later is knowing that you'll possibly have to take a placement test in that foreign language before starting college.
The handout says 2 years of single foreign language. That's right? 2 years. 2 years.
Well, two credits is what we.
That's a good question. It's 2 credits. Where does it say 2 years? On the PowerPoint, did I? On the slide?
That's University of Public Planning. Says elected.
Oh yeah, you're right.
We take that verbiage right from the university course books. So not 2 years. What they mean is 2 years of a foreign language. We would here within our block schedule that would be 2 credits.
That's a good question. I'm gonna see if I can fix that before it gets up on the web too.
Any other questions on that? Exciting initiatives continuing the school counseling program. Most of you again are already familiar with through the Wisconsin Comprehensive School Counseling Model, the development of what's called individual learning plans. Again, if you haven't already had your Tiger Talk, which is a student and parent education and career planning conference, we've titled them Tiger Talks here. We thought that would be fitting. But that is where we discuss your student's ILP, which is developed within WISC Careers. We also discuss what's called career clusters and pathways, which is a way for students to group their required courses and electives into a sequence so that they can plan out over the next 4 years what classes they intend to take in order to best prepare themselves and plan for an education and for their future goals after high school. Utilizing those 16 career clusters, students can identify a pathway. Again, they're typically doing that either through what they already know they want to do, or else what they're coming up with through different career assessments and things that they're completing through our WISC Careers program. And then what you see here is a picture of the 16 career clusters. Basically, it's a national career development model that years ago was adopted by the state of Wisconsin, and the idea behind it is any occupation that you can think of falls into one of these 16 categories. What we're trying to do with those then is give students some direction as they plan their high school career course-wise, and give them some recommendations. Our staff got together and with all 16 clusters in mind, made recommendations based on the different clusters as far as what courses we would recommend in the 4 core areas over the next 4 years, along with recommended electives and even activities that students might want to complete and participate in order to best prepare themselves for an education in their interested area after high school.
Our kids have said they really like these pathway sheets, and they are constantly changing depending on what's going on in the world of work. But it tells them exactly what to take, as Phil said, in the areas, and recommends even when to take them. And then it talks about the required courses that you get, recommended electives. You don't have to take all those, but if you're going into health science, this one's for health science. Recommending these courses. Recommended activities, science club, health explorer, CPR first aid training, lifeguard, and then these are the potential occupations that you might be interested in. I would have killed for something like that when I was in high school. We never had it mapped out like that. Our kids have said they really like having that mapped out. And we have one of these developed for every one of the pathways.
And again, I've already mentioned the figure talks. Half of you in here probably have already been through one, and Mr. Bowman and I will be through all by the first week in April or so. But basically anything that if you have questions ahead of time, some of you have had the advantage of having those. We went through alphabetical order when scheduling those, but all students will be prepared as we get into registration in the next couple of weeks. And if you have any questions, by all means, you can contact Mr. Bowman or myself as well. So.
All right, extracurricular and athletic program. Very important. Our best students, our good students, good to best students, I should say, the ones that are doing well academically, are involved in extracurricular and athletic program. Busy students make better students. And the research there's a lot of research out there. I did a brief study, nothing big. I just wanted to look at what the grade point averages were for our forensics, our band, and our choir kids. Because our forensics and our band and our choir kids were performing one of our honors scholarship functions. And I just want to give a boost for our fine arts program, the performing arts. I don't remember exactly the figures, but I think of all the kids involved in forensics, band, and choir together, the average GPA was 3.7. So, and you can do the same thing with athletics. We submit a scholar athletic report to the conference every year, and our athletic teams have on average, have very good grade point averages. So it's good for students to be busy, and busy all 4 years. It really kind of tears at our heart when we have a kid who's been involved in, let's say, volleyball or basketball or whatever sport, or even forensics, music, whatever, through their junior year, and then they drop out because they say, well, I got to work. And I understand funds are tight, and I understand kids got to make money to go to college. I understand that they got their whole life to work. And I hate to see kids say, when they're 40, 50 years of age, I wish I would have played trombone one more year. It was so much fun, and I think I'd let it go. Or I wish I could have played football. So encourage your kids to get involved. You need to make choices with them about how involved. I mean, you can be over busy too. You're burning the candles at both ends. You have a whole host of other problems. But they do build character. Busy students do better, as I said, and develop well-rounded individuals. Again, this is on web. This is not exhaustive. but this is just a smattering of the things that we have to offer for kids here at Chilton High School, more on the activity side, and this is more on the athletic side. But I do encourage you to get your kids involved. Okay, some important data. Oh, before we go on to that, could you look in your packet, and it's right after the University of Prep course planning, pages 10 and 11. I included that in here. This is courses at a glance by department, so that you have this in hand. I just wanted you to see that tonight. This shows you every course that we have to offer here and in each department. Now, not all these courses are available to freshmen. You're going to want to get on the web and look at right after these pages. We have is the largest portion of the book. All of these courses are described. They tell you what their credit value is. They tell you what grade level they're offered for, and then they give a little description of what the students can expect to learn in that class. But I thought this would be interesting for you to just have that, so that when your sons and daughters come home and start talking registration, you can kind of look through this with them. And then your students will get, and this is on the web too, the next page, it's getting started with a 4-year plan. We put this out here so that students, they're obviously they're interested in their freshman year, as they should. But they should also keep a watchful eye on what's going on, what they're planning to do with their sophomore, their junior, and senior. What we have already printed on here are the required courses. They have to take those. But the blank boxes are where they can fill in. So, and I would suggest doing it with a pencil, or this is online, you can print this off, you can print multiple copies, whatever. Do it in pencil, map it out. Okay, we get Spanish in here, we get band in here, we get choir in here. Oh boy, I want to take art. What do I do? I'm out of boxes. Well, maybe if we move Spanish to the junior year when I got more time. Oh, now it works. And then talk about it. This can be evolving, but we put that in there to help you and your student look at a 4-year plan.
On that too,
Go ahead.
again, if you haven't had your Tiger Talk yet, you may not know about that, but we go over that 4-year plan within that meeting, and we'll be having all students turn those into Mr. Bowman after your conference, so that we can share a copy of that with their homeroom teacher, a teacher that they'll have all 4 years here at high school. And then every year at a minimum, they'll be going over that 4-year plan to kind of refer back to for registration time.
The next page is specifically in the 9th grade year. And that's on the web as well. So once they work through that 4-year plan, they're getting things kind of finalized as what they want to do. They should fill out the rest of this grid and bring them with them when they do their registration. And I'll talk about that in a minute when we talk about these dates. And the last page, we put this packet together, and Diane and I talked today, and we thought we better print the dates. This is a refrigerator thing. But so we put this in. It's the same slide as here. But what's coming up, February 20th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, a similar presentation that I'm giving you tonight will be given to the students in 8th grade through 11th grade. We've just adjusted a little bit to make it more kid appropriate, student appropriate. But they will have all this stuff explained to them, grades 8 through 11, separate times. They all got to come here to the English Center, and we'll get that done. Chilton Middle School students for the 8th graders will be on the 22nd. They'll walk over here and they'll spend about 45 minutes with us. February 27th through March 2nd, that's when the students will actually be doing their registration, and it's all done online here in a controlled environment in a computer lab. And that's one of the things we'll be teaching them. Most of them know how to do it. It's the 8th graders that I'll pay attention a little bit more, but they're more savvy at the computer than we are. It's all done online. Yes, sir?
Earlier when you said as far as splitting one of the boxes, 45 minutes, was that just for those 2 courses? Or could there be other elective courses somewhere in the future?
That's a good question. The question is on the skinnies. When we split those 2 boxes, is it just for the music courses, or could there be others? Primarily, it's music. But if I'm a student that's going to take band, but I don't want to take the other band or choir, I'm going to have a place to go. It's probably going to be history, English, science, Spanish. Okay? Now, I have to balance those out. Typically, we're pretty good at getting them balanced out with just working with the music students. But there are times when I got a course that doesn't have enough students in it. And so we'll take a student who is not a music student and we'll plunk them in 2 skinnies. Okay, so that does happen. Not very often. How many students would you say, on average, that get the 2 skinnies but aren't in music?
Per grade.
Yeah, 5 to 10 students per grade. Okay. March, April, and May, that's when Mr. Grable and I go to work. We'll be analyzing that registration data, feeding it into the computer. It'll give us all sorts of reports. We load our configurations back into the computer based upon how we're going to staff the school, number of sections we're going to offer of each course. Let the computer do its work. It spits out a timetable, and from then we have to keep tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it until we say we've got the best schedule we can for how our kids registered for the classes. That's our goal. We want to minimize conflict. That's our whole goal. We don't want to have to call kids in and say, guess what? You can't get this class. Guess what? You can't get this class. We still have to do it. That's one of the necessary evils of any schedule, block schedule, 7th period day, 8th period day, 16th period day, whatever. You're going to have conflicts. But that's our time. In August, we got it set already. August 16th of 2012, with this on your refrigerator, we will be scheduling, distributing students' schedules and conducting an orientation to the high school. We used to do it in May, but you know what, kids are they're thinking about June, July, and August and May, so we do it in August now. And we do, our 3 goals there are show them the school, help them find where their classes are, because they don't want to look like dweebs on the first day. They're trying to find their classes and worrying about what the upperclassmen are thinking. 2, show them where their locker is, teach them how to open it. That's another thing, don't want to look like an idiot doing that. And 3, how do we do lunch at the high school? So we give them all free lunch. Let them go through the lunch line. So they get those 3 heavy hitters that came right from kids. Those are the 3 things that are important to us, because we don't want to look somewhat cool on our first day. So that's what we do. I will tell you, this summer we will have some fee collection evenings again. We give student schedules, or we give schedules to students once those fees are collected and paid. So watch for the newspaper for those days. We haven't set those yet, but got to have your fees paid to get your schedule. So that is what's coming up. Put that on your refrigerator, as I said. Phil and I will be around to take some individual questions. If you have collective questions, we'll do those now. If you prefer email, I answer email regularly. I pride myself on that. Or give me a call. I'll be happy to take your call. If your email doesn't come through, call, and we'll find it in the spam folder, and we'll make sure that it gets through. Okay? Yes? No, just students. Yes, good question. Is August 16th for parents too? No, just students. I'm not going to hold you out of the building. Your kid might, but I won't. If you feel a need to come, you're welcome. But it is just for students. Good question. You call me and I'll give you a tour. Okay? I love doing that. So if I get too many, not too many, but if I get a lot of calls, we'll find a time when we can do it as a group. And our students and teachers like it when we have people come to the building too. So, anytime.
Here's the front door, here's the bathroom, here's the back door.
Yeah. Any other questions for the general group? Yes?
With the block scheduling, are they given a certain portion of time during that class, sort of as a resource time, what they have now at study hall, what I would have known it as, but they don't have resource times in the high school then, right, where they have time to do homework or time. Is that given in that block?
That's a very good question. The question is there any time in the block schedule for resource time, like what you and I would call study hall? And the answer to that is yes and no. There is no established study time in the block schedule. Study halls we found from kids, they told us we really aren't using them. We did have some students that were using them when we were in the tradition, but for the most part they weren't used very effectively. But the answer is yes, because when our teachers are teaching a lesson or teaching a unit of instruction, they don't want to send kids out to do homework without having a good understanding of how to do that homework. So they will use class time to do what we call guided practice, to have the kids get going on their homework, and so that when they leave the room, they're not going to solidify their mistakes because they really didn't know what was going on. So we do have that built in. I will also tell you, I'm not exactly sure if this is going to start right away next year. or mid-year, or even the following year, what we are building in right now we have a 15-minute advisor-advisee/homeroom time. I'm looking at expanding that to a half an hour to provide homeroom time or advisor-advisee time, but also additional time for students to go and get specific help from teachers outside of the classroom. Make up a quiz, take a test. I don't understand this math problem. I need some individual help. So we're looking at building that in. I can't guarantee that that will start right away next fall. But we're looking at it. So part of our response to intervention, if you've read or heard anything about that in the media, it's response to intervention. The whole district is working on implementing that. We have to have it implemented by, I think, 2013. Yes?
How would you do that? What would you take away from it?
We dropped the 90-minute periods to 85 minutes.
And it still means all their
Yep, we're still within, the teachers have said, we have 90-minute blocks. But, are we going from 8 o'clock right to 9:30? Not necessarily, so we can do about 5 minutes. But I will tell you, the third block will still keep 90, because I don't know how to divide 85 by 2 evenly, and we're going to close the amount of instructional time that we give to the scans. So we'll keep third block at 90, so we can divide it into 45. Good question. Any others for the group? All right, out of here in under an hour. Mr. Grable and I will be here if you have individual questions or concerns. Feel free to come on down. We'll take care of those concerns. Thank you so much. And do call, do email, do stop in. Be happy to help you any way I can. Sure.